Hi, welcome back to the Agent Insider. I'm your host, Andy Jewell. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to unpack probably one of the more common insurance policies and coverages that are out there that most people are going to use, which is auto insurance. So most people are driving, have auto insurance, and you'd be concerned about auto insurance, whether you're a business owner, a homeowner or not. So I want to just kind of walk through that process of both what the coverages are, what they mean, what things to pay attention to when you're shopping for insurance, to make sure that you're getting the best rates available, and also making sure that coverages are accurate and fitting your needs. So I want to kind of dive in that. We're going to take a deep dive today into auto insurance and coverages. So in general, just want to talk a little bit about what auto insurance is doing. And that in general, in all insurance for that matter, but auto insurance is transferring the risk. They're transferring the risk from you, the driver, the vehicle owner, to the insurance company. And that transfer of risk is happening for a premium. So you're paying the premium, the cost of your insurance policy to the insurance company. And for that price, they're taking on the risk of your driving. So there's legal requirements in most states and in most places to carry auto insurance. Some of them allow you to post a bond. So like if you're like, hey, insurance is a ripoff, I just want to take care of it myself. Most states will allow you to do that by posting a bond with the state. And then you're saying, I'm financially responsible for the accidents that happen. And here's the money that's set aside in the case that I am in an accident, that there's some guarantees that if it's my fault, the other people are going to be able to get a minimum amount of money out of that bond. So you could self-insure if that's what you want. By doing that, you're holding onto all of the risk and you're not paying a premium for it. So that's options for you to not have to transfer that risk. Most people, though, don't want to tie up their own money in a bond and have to be their own adjuster and their own attorney in the event of a claim. So most people are transferring risk to the insurance companies. So when you're transferring that risk, it's important to kind of think about what is it that you're transferring? What is the risk that you're giving to the insurance company, and how much risk should you keep and how much risk should you give them? So kind of like, I just want to walk through coverages with you real briefly so we get a good sense of, on an auto insurance policy, what are the risks that the insurance companies are willing to take? So the first one is going to be liability. Liability is covering third party. So if that's covering the other people, if you're at fault in an accident, the liability covers their injuries, bodily injury, and their property damage. So their vehicle, or it could be other property such as a fence or a house, if you were to hit some stationary property. So liability, bodily injury, liability, property damage, and then uninsured motorists. Now, before I go on, I do want to just kind of side note, and I'll come back to this because it is super important. The most important part of your auto insurance policy, in my opinion, is that liability amount. Because ultimately, what we're doing is we're saying, if we're at fault in an accident and the person was seriously injured or a lot of property was damaged, I want to make sure that the focus stays on the insurance company, not on my assets. So that liability is what protects me from being sued, protects me from lawsuits. So it's very important. I would say it's the most important part of your auto policy. The next part is going to be uninsured motorists. It's going to cover you in the event that somebody hits you with no insurance or not enough insurance. It covers your bodily injury, your property damage. And it is important as well because sometimes you might get hit by someone who doesn't have any insurance, or maybe they have state minimum insurance, and it's not enough to cover your injuries or your property damage. And so it's nice to be able to have that covered by your own company. Now, you're not going to be exposed to a lawsuit. You could still suffer significant financial loss, though, if you can't work. And they have very minimum coverage and they have no assets. That's where you run into the problem, is if they have no assets, even if they're clearly in the wrong and you sue them, you can't get anything from them because they have no assets. So that's why that uninsured motorist becomes important, is to protect you financially and get somebody who might not be being responsible in carrying adequate coverage. Personal injury protection or medical payments pays for you or anyone in the vehicle, regardless of who's at fault, for medical expenses and lost wages up to the amount that you choose. And so even if you're at fault in the accident and you get hurt, that medical expenses will cover med payments. Personal injury protection will cover medical expenses. It covers lost wages. It'll also cover things like personal injury protection will also cover things like if you have to have someone come in and help with household chores or lend assistance to you while you're recovering from the injuries of the accident. It also has some very limited coverage for final expenses like burials if somebody passed away in the accident, regardless of who's at fault. So lots of coverage inside of that personal injury protection. It's a great coverage. It's very robust and adds a lot to your policy. There's a premium associated with that as well. So it becomes more of a convenience coverage because, again, it's not going to be a lawsuit issue. This is a convenience coverage of like, hey, I'm being taken care of, and you choose like $10,000, $35,000. So it's more limited the amount of coverage that you're getting in it, but it's very robust and nice to have. The next is going to be physical damage for your vehicle. So you're going to have comprehensive and collision. Comprehensive is going to cover fire, theft, vandalism, glass, animals, weather-related issues. So it's very broad. It's not covering if you get in an accident and damage the vehicle, but it's covering most other things. Collision is if you hit something or somebody hits you. Collision would cover the vehicle. And the reason why I say if someone hits you is you can opt, even if it's the other person's fault, you could opt to have your policy cover the damages to your vehicle, and then your insurance company will subrogate against the other person who was at fault. Sometimes we'll do that if the other carrier is maybe out of country, like from Canada, or if the other carrier is being difficult settling the claim. It might make more sense to cover it through your own policy and allow us to go fight with the other carrier. So that's going to cover physical damage to your vehicle if it's in an accident, sort of. Deductibles are going to be subject to, so you're going to either choose your deductible 100, 500, 1,000. Deductibles are something that's a little bit unique. A lot of people want really low deductibles. And something I tell people to think about is you should carry a deductible as high as what you're comfortable paying in the event of a claim. So that way you're offsetting that with premium savings. You're kind of betting, on yourself that you're not going to have something happen. But if something does, what are you comfortable with paying in the event that something does happen? If there is an accident, if there is a claim, how much could I come up with? What am I comfortable paying out of pocket first? And go as high as you're comfortable with, because that's going to save you on your monthly premiums. And it also reduces the number of claims you have on your policy, which again saves you on your monthly premiums in the long run. So that's something to think about on your deductibles. Other coverages to think about are going to be like rental car coverage, pays for a rental car while your vehicle is being repaired, towing. You might have custom paint jobs or custom sound systems that you've installed. Like those are things that you might need to add additional coverages for. And it really becomes an individual of how much risk do you want to transfer versus how much do you want to pay in premium. So that's really what you have to start to weigh out. Some things that I think are important to know that affect the price of your insurance. So the zip code or where you're at is going to be a rating basis. So each area has a different base rating basis, and they're drawing on law of large numbers there of like how often are accidents happening? When an accident happens, how much do they cost? And so they kind of create these generalities by each geographical location that affects the premium. So where you live affects your premium. Your driving history affects your premium. Obviously, if you have tickets and accidents, your premiums are going to be more than if you have no tickets or accidents. So driving history makes a big difference in your premium. The vehicle that you have is going to be different. So it's not just one price no matter what. The value of your vehicle is going to affect the cost of comprehensive and collision. The curb weight versus your horsepower affects liability. They come up with symbols for each vehicle that is going to affect the rating on that vehicle. So even though sometimes it might be a newer vehicle, has a lot of safety features, that also still might be more expensive, because if the vehicle's damaged, the cost of repair is a lot higher. Or maybe that type of vehicle is more sporty, and so people tend to drive more aggressive, and in general those vehicles get into more accidents. That's going to affect the cost. Or maybe it's a heavy vehicle. It's a bigger vehicle and it's a heavy vehicle, so when they hit somebody, it causes more damage to the other person. So there's a lot of those sort of factors inside of the vehicles that make a difference of how much your insurance is going to cost. And this is something I tell people all the time, is like, when you're shopping for vehicles, it's a good idea to talk to your insurance agent and just say, hey, these are the cars I'm looking at. Tell me what that's going to do to my insurance premium. Because sometimes it can be surprising, like, oh, wow, wait, that's going to cost me an extra $100 a month just because it's this type of vehicle versus that type of vehicle. It might make a big difference in your budgeting. So make sure that you think about that and talk to the agent as you're shopping for vehicles. Something that doesn't affect your price, and this is something I've heard since I was a teenager, like the red cars are surcharged. The insurance company doesn't care what color the car is. That's not going to affect the price, but the type of car will. But the color of the car is not going to affect your price. Another thing that to kind of think about is, in general, for saving money, because that's always a big thing. Whenever someone's looking at auto insurance, they're always like, how much can I save? How do I save it? So some things to think about when you're looking to save money on your auto insurance. We talked about, one was the deductible already. The other one would be to look about telematics. Like if your company, the company that you're using, offers any sort of telematics service, which would be something that's either plugging into the car or an app that you're downloading on your phone, and it is going to track you. And so sometimes that can feel invasive, but it's tracking for, like, how often do you speed? How often do you brake hard? How often are you texting and driving or talking on your phone while driving? And these are all very clear indicators of loss. So the insurance companies are able to offer deeper discounts, or some of the companies will surcharge you, but most of them are going to give you the opportunity to earn more discounts by having better than average driving behavior. So that's something that's really important. The deductibles, come back to that, because that's something that a lot of people don't think about. The other one is ancillary coverages, right? So be careful that you're not buying coverages that you don't need. And so walk through that with your agents and say, hey, what coverages are on here that are more optional? And give me that breakdown of how much will I save if I take towing off, if I take rental car coverage off, things like that, because that's a great area to look at saving. And then you start working through more optional coverages. The other one that's very commonly missed is your pay plans. So most companies are going to give you a different rate if you have full pay, which is I'm paying for the whole 6 months or the whole year at a time. Or if I'm going to pay monthly, am I paying automatic payments out of my account, or am I writing checks? Because if I do automatic payments, almost every company that I've seen will give you a better rate. So make sure that your pay plans are in line with what you're comfortable with, but also make sure that you're maximizing the discount that's available through your pay plan. The other one that I would say is important to make sure of, and you hear this a lot, but it is really important to look at, is the bundling aspect. So multiple cars gives you discounts. Most companies will give you discounts if you have, auto and home insurance together, or auto and life insurance together. Or if you own a business, a lot of times having that business insured with the same company also gives you discounts. The companies are smart enough. They go, hey, we could service one client more effectively that has, 3 or 5 policies with us than we could service 5 clients that all have one policy with us. So they're passing that savings on to you when you can bundle those things together. So bundling is important. Make sure that your pay plan is right. Make sure that your deductibles are as high as that you're comfortable with. And then, looking at telematics, and then asking them, are there any other things that they offer discounts for? So a lot of times companies will have discounts for certain occupations. They call them affinity groups. So teachers and doctors, police officers, firefighters, retired military. Like, there's a lot of different types of options of occupations that give you additional discounts. So make sure you ask if they have any occupational discounts that you might qualify for. So it's a good idea just to kind of walk through all of those, and each company is going to be slightly different in how that works. So that's the one part that can be a little bit difficult. There's some common ones, but some of those extra ones like occupational discounts will vary from company to company. So it might just be a good idea to ask them, are there any other discounts that I could qualify for? And then they should be able to give you kind of that list of additional discounts. So kind of want to just recap in general something that I think is really important that I try to drive home with all of my customers. When you're looking at your auto insurance, the most important part of the policy is your liability. If your liability is not enough to cover the accident that you're involved in and you're at fault, the lawyers are going to look at your assets. They're going to look at your equity in any property you own. They're going to look at investments, and they're going to look at usually 2.5 times your annual income, because they can garnish 25% of your wages for up to 10 years, which ends up being 2.5 times. And if those numbers equal more than your liability amount that you have, and they could justify a high claim. So just for an example, right? Like if you're carrying $100,000 of per person for bodily injury, and you T-boned a doctor on his way to work and he can't work for 6 months and his vehicle's damaged and he had to have surgery and therapy and all kinds of stuff to get back to where he could be. And he goes and talks to his lawyer because your insurance company is going to offer him $100,000. And he goes, well, I missed $200,000 of work. I have $50,000 in medical bills, and I have pain and suffering that is, $50,000 because of the impact to my life from this accident. So he goes, hey, I got $300,000 that I feel justified to ask for. And the lawyer goes, yep, court cases sustain that. The lawyer is going to get paid a percentage of the claim. So he's more likely to sue you if you have, equity in your home for a couple $100,000. And, if you make $100,000 a year between you and your spouse, even, because if it's a community property state, they'll look at both of you. And they go, well, 2.5 times your annual income is $250,000 there. Plus you got $100,000 of equity in your home, and you got some investments and savings accounts and whatnot. Like, well, we're going to sue you for that $300,000 instead of just taking $100,000 from the insurance company. So that's where you want to go, okay, I've exposed myself now, so I want to make sure that my liability is equal to or slightly more than whatever your assets are. And if that's the case, most lawyers are going to go, we'd rather settle with the insurance company than sue you, because the insurance company is going to write us a check. We don't have to go to court. We get our money, and it's the easiest road to the biggest pot of money. And that's really what you want to think about when you're looking at insurance. So sometimes people, when they're comparing their insurance policies, they're tempted to just look at the premium and just go, how much am I paying now? How much would I pay here? And that's the only thing they pay attention to. And while that's important, the way your insurance is going to work in the event of a claim is why you buy insurance. So if you're not getting the proper coverage and the proper protection, even if you're saving $50 a month and then you have an accident, what good did it do you to save the $50 a month when now you're in court being sued? So I think it's just really important. Price matters. I understand that everybody has budgets and we have to work inside of that. But as you're doing that, understand that the most important thing that you're buying when you buy auto insurance is the liability to transfer the risk of an accident from you to the insurance company. So look at your assets, do an asset analysis, and just say, what does that look like? And then that's really what you want to focus on. Hopefully that's helpful to kind of think about when you're comparing insurance policies, you're getting different quotes and you're out there looking, be cognizant of what am I wanting to transfer to the insurance company? How much should that be? And then when I'm comparing quotes, I'm going to look at the coverages, the premiums, but I'm also going to look at the service and the recommendations I get from that agent. Are they walking through this quote process with me? Do they understand even what they're selling me? And are they helping me be more informed and more educated about the processes I'm buying it? Because it's not just for this moment, but it's for future interactions or relationships with this company. So I want to make sure that the agent seems knowledgeable and is helping guide me and educate me through that process. The other thing to make sure that you're asking is some of the detailed things of like, hey, what about permissive users? How does this policy cover me if I'm driving someone else's vehicle? There's some other things that get more nuanced that you should really be asking about if you have other people that are driving your car ever, if you ever let your brother that comes to visit or your neighbor drive your vehicle, or if you're ever driving someone else's vehicle. How that works is going to vary by company. And those are the small little details that are not going to be shown on quotes. So walking through some of those additional questions are important if that's your situation. If you're not just driving your car with your drivers, you might ask some additional questions. If you're going out of the country, it's also important to ask that question of, hey, if you drive to Canada, am I covered? Some companies will cover you, some companies won't. Most companies don't cover you in Mexico, but some might. And so that's the other question. If you're on the southern border, if you go into Mexico, make sure that you have the proper coverage for that as well. A lot of times people just think I have insurance and it's going to cover me no matter what, no matter where. And it doesn't. There's limitations and exclusions in every policy. So understanding the ones that are important to you, that affect you, just involve asking some additional questions. So having somebody that you can talk that through, I think, is very important. So overall, hopefully that's helpful to you guys and gives you some more things to think about as you're shopping through insurance and looking at different options. So want to thank you guys for taking the time today. If you have questions or comments, anything that we missed that you wanted clarification on, go ahead and shoot me an email. The email address is theagentinsider@gmail.com. That's theagentinsider@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Until next time, have a great day.